For 6 seasons, Moesha felt like family. The jokes, the lessons, the friendships. We grew up with them. But nearly 30 years later, life has taken the cast down very different paths. Some are thriving, others faced heartbreaking struggles, and a few left this world too soon. Let's look back and remember. William Allen Young as Frank Mitchell. When Moesha hit TV screens in 1996, viewers quickly learned that life in the Mitchell household came with one unshakable constant: Frank Mitchell. At 42 years old, William Allen Young stepped into the role of the father who laid down the rules with iron conviction but carried love just as strongly. He was the one that held the family together, creating the tension that made Moesha's teenage rebellion feel so real. That on-screen strength came from a place of deep personal loss. William was born on January 24, 1954, in Washington, D.C., but his childhood was far from stable. He lost both his parents early, and with them went the sense of safety every child deserves. The pain left him guarded, forcing him to mature quickly while still carrying the ache of being a boy who never really had a father or mother to lean on. With that burden on his shoulders, education and theater became his refuge. He threw himself into books, into performance, into anything that could quiet the silence left behind by tragedy. But even as he found a passion for acting, the industry wasn't quick to welcome him. Rejections piled up, each one threatening to confirm the fear that maybe he didn't belong. And yet every setback only sharpened his determination. By the time Moesha came along, William had carved out a reputation through steady work. Guest roles on Matlock, Murder, She Wrote, and countless other shows that proved his reliability. Moesha gave him the space to show audiences not just discipline, but heart. Later, he kept surprising viewers with roles in films like District 9 and, more recently, appearances in Cobra Kai. Each project was a quiet victory, proof that his resilience had carried him further than he once believed possible. Now, at 71, William Allen Young continues to work while keeping much of his life private. His fortune, around $1.5 million, isn't the story. His endurance is. For many fans, he will always be remembered as Frank Mitchell, the dad who demanded respect, but also the man who, in real life, overcame the kind of heartbreak that would have broken anyone else. Bernie Mac as Uncle Bernie. On Moesha, one of the brightest sparks was Uncle Bernie, a loud, funny, no-nonsense relative who could cut through any family tension with a single punchline. Bernie Mac was 39 years old when he took that role in 1996, and every scene he appeared in carried his signature mix of comedy and warmth. He wasn't on screen as much as the leads, but whenever he showed up, the energy shifted. Bernie Mac was born October 5, 1957, in Chicago, and from the very start, life tested him. He grew up in poverty, surrounded by hardship, and found out early what it meant to struggle. The sudden death of his mother in 1980 left him devastated, pushing him into a depression that nearly consumed him. With no safety net, he worked small jobs, performed in clubs, and fought to keep his dream alive, even as the world seemed stacked against him. Those years weren't just tough, they were punishing. Bernie leaned on alcohol and gambling, habits that dragged him into financial ruin more than once. Cigarettes became another crutch, a way to dull the stress but also a ticking time bomb for his health. Still, even in his darkest days, he discovered that laughter was his escape. Standing on stage, he told the truth about his pain, and the audience laughed because they saw their own struggles in his voice. That honesty built his career. From his breakout stand-up sets to film roles in The Players Club and later Ocean's 11, Bernie Mac became a force. His greatest triumph was The Bernie Mac Show, where he brought his unfiltered style into America's living rooms, winning over critics and fans alike. At last, the kid from Chicago who had nothing was standing at the top of Hollywood. But the victory was short-lived. Bernie's lifelong smoking aggravated his sarcoidosis, a lung disease he kept private. On August 9th, 2008, he passed away at just 50 years old from complications of pneumonia. His estate, worth around $15 million, continues to honor his work. But his real wealth is the joy he gave to millions. Bernie Mac's story is bittersweet. A man who turned struggle into laughter, even when the struggle never truly left him. Jo Marie Payton as Bernetta Campbell. Bernetta Campbell wasn't a flashy character, but she was the kind of mother figure every sitcom needed. Wise, nurturing, and always ready with steady advice, she anchored Hakeem's storyline in Moesha. Jo Marie Payton was 46 years old when she joined the cast in 1996, appearing in about 40 episodes. Though a recurring role, Bernetta's quiet strength left an impression that made her one of the show's most reliable presences. Behind that calm exterior, Jo Marie's real life started with struggles far from the TV cameras. Born August 3, 1950, in Albany, Georgia, she grew up during segregation and lost both of her parents early. That kind of loss shaped her personality in ways that were both protective and controlling. Traits she admitted later often created tension in her personal relationships. Her childhood was marked by responsibility too heavy for a young girl, and the scars followed her into adulthood. Before her big break, Jo Marie spent years chasing work in an unforgiving industry. She sang in small venues, auditioned for minor roles, and battled the sense that women like her, black, older, and not a Hollywood stereotype, were rarely given the spotlight. Yet she pushed forward, and her persistence paid off when she landed the role of Harriet Winslow on Family Matters. That sitcom made her a household name, proving her talent and cementing her career. But success didn't protect her from pain. Jo Marie endured 3 divorces, in 1991, 2004, and 2012, that left her emotionally and financially drained. At one point, she had to sell her home to clear debts. Shopping addiction became a coping mechanism, and in 2018, her name was dragged into controversy with accusations of on-set aggression during Family Matters, something she firmly denied. Therapy became her way back, helping her face years of unresolved trauma. Now at 75, Jo Marie still makes guest appearances, most recently on The Neighborhood, but her focus is on family and advocacy. She has become a strong supporter of women's health and anti-domestic violence causes. With an estimated net worth of $4 million, she continues to live not as a sitcom mom, but as a survivor who turned heartbreak into resilience. Sheryl Lee Ralph as Dee Mitchell. Dee Mitchell walked into Moesha like a breath of fresh air, stylish, confident, and with that calm voice that could silence an entire room. Sheryl Lee Ralph was 41 when she took on the role in 1996, playing the stepmother who doubled as a high school principal. Dee showed Moesha and the audience that family is about love and patience. Sheryl's real life, though, began with trials that had nothing to do with television. Born December 30th, 1955 in Kingston, Jamaica, and raised between the Caribbean and the United States, she experienced the feeling of being in between worlds from a young age. That sense of dislocation carried weight, leaving her to wrestle with belonging long before she ever stood on a Broadway stage. Her early adulthood was no easier. By the 1980s, she was chasing her dreams in New York, pouring everything she had into theater while navigating an industry that too often ignored women like her. The heartbreak of failed auditions and the quiet ache of infertility in her private life left her exhausted. Yet, she held on, finding purpose in the people she lost, friends and colleagues during the AIDS epidemic. That tragedy turned her into a lifelong activist. Success finally found her in unforgettable roles. She broke through on Broadway with Dreamgirls, and on television she gave Moesha its emotional core. Decades later, she stunned audiences again as Barbara Howard in Abbott Elementary, a role that won her a Primetime Emmy in 2022. Each project was more than just a credit. It was proof of her resilience. Now at 70, Sheryl Lee Ralph continues to act, advocate, and inspire. Her memoir Diva 2.0 reflects on both the triumphs and the ways she survived. Her net worth, estimated at $4 million, can't measure the impact she's had as an actress, activist, and survivor. Yvette Wilson as Andell Wilkerson. When Moesha first introduced the den, one character immediately stood out. Andell Wilkerson, the witty and down-to-earth owner who felt more like family than a side character. Yvette Wilson was 32 years old when she brought Andell to life in 1996, and her blend of warmth and sharp humor made her the show's unofficial mentor. But Yvette's real journey began with a childhood that was anything but easy. Born March 6, 1964, in Los Angeles, she grew up in a working-class family where money was always tight. The instability left her constantly anxious, searching for a sense of security she rarely had. Even as a child, she leaned on comedy as a shield, using humor to survive the weight of problems too heavy for her young shoulders. Her break into Hollywood didn't happen overnight. She hustled through stand-up clubs, small TV parts, and constant rejection. But when Moesha and later its spin-off The Parkers came her way, everything changed. Audiences adored Andell's sass and sincerity, and Yvette seemed destined for long-term sitcom success. For a while, her career felt unstoppable. Off-screen, though, life was crumbling. A divorce in 2005 left her emotionally and financially shaken. By 2009, failed investments forced her into bankruptcy, and for a time she even faced homelessness. Stress pushed her into bad habits, chain smoking, unhealthy eating, and light gambling that took a toll on her body. When she was diagnosed with advanced cervical cancer in 2011, the fight was made harder by financial struggles that limited her access to treatment. On June 14, 2012, Yvette Wilson passed away at only 48 years old. At the time, her estate was worth about $1 million, much of it from the Parkers and her stand-up tours. Fans remember her not for the tragedy, but for the way she lit up every scene as Andell. Ricky Harris as J.W. in Moesha. J.W. was the neighborhood mechanic with a quick smile and quicker punchlines. Ricky Harris was 34 years old when he stepped into the role in 1996, giving audiences a character who felt both familiar and hilarious. The guy who could fix your car while cracking jokes that stuck with you. Ricky's roots, however, were marked by hardship. Born October 5, 1962, in Long Beach, California, he lost his father early, a loss that left a deep hole in his upbringing. With little guidance at home, Ricky gravitated toward the streets, chasing trouble as a way to mask the pain. Those early years planted habits of avoidance, especially when it came to responsibility, that would haunt him well into adulthood. By the 1990s, Ricky was carving a name for himself in comedy. He made appearances on Def Comedy Jam and landed small but memorable roles in films like Friday. His energy was raw and magnetic, and for a moment it seemed like he could break through as one of the next big names in comedy. But fame wasn't enough to silence the demons he carried. Addiction became his shadow. Heavy cocaine use drained his finances and led to brushes with the law. His marriage ended in 2000, and rumors of domestic violence further damaged his reputation. Attempts at a comeback were scattered, with stand-up shows here and there, but the momentum of his early career slipped away. Even his brother Damon Wayans tried to intervene, but Ricky struggled to pull free. On December 26, 2016, Ricky Harris died suddenly of a heart attack at 54. His estate was modest, about $500,000, built from tours and smaller film appearances. But for fans, his legacy lives on in the laughter he created, especially his memorable turns in the Friday series. Brandy Norwood as Moesha Mitchell. At just 17 years old in 1996, Brandy Norwood stepped into Moesha and instantly became the face of the series. Moesha Mitchell was smart, independent, and outspoken, the kind of girl who asked the questions many teens were too scared to say out loud. Brandy carried that role with ease, turning it into the defining part of her early career. Brandy's journey started in Macomb, Mississippi, where she was born on February 11th, 1979, and raised in a modest family that leaned heavily on faith. Even as a little girl, her voice stood out, and by the time she was 4, she was already singing in church choirs. But chasing fame as a child wasn't simple. Moving to California to pursue music, she faced the pressures of auditions, rejections, and the fear of being overlooked in an industry that often dismissed young black girls. Her persistence paid off when she signed with Atlantic Records in her teens. By the mid-1990s, she wasn't just starring on television. She was dominating the music charts. Songs like I Wanna Be Down, and later the monster hit The Boy Is Mine, made her a household name. And her role as the first black Cinderella in Disney's 1997 TV movie, alongside Whitney Houston, cemented her as a cultural icon for a generation. But fame came with shadows. In 2006, Brandy was involved in a fatal car accident in Los Angeles that claimed another driver's life. The wrongful death lawsuits dragged on until 2009, leaving her with deep PTSD. Media scrutiny painted her as a diva, and privately she battled anxiety and retail addiction as coping mechanisms. The stress of being in the spotlight was heavy, and it nearly ended her career. Now 46, she continues to act, most recently in The Front Room, 2024, and is raising her daughter Sarai as a single mother. With an estimated net worth of $12 million, Brandy remains a survivor, an artist who turned both triumphs and tragedies into a lasting legacy. Lamont Bentley as Hakeem Campbell. For 6 seasons of Moesha, one character was always at Moesha's side, Hakeem Campbell, the loyal best friend who often brought the laughs and sometimes stole the scene. Lamont Bentley was 23 when he joined the cast in 1996 and became a fan favorite. Hakeem's charm and comic timing made him unforgettable, even as the show shifted through its many storylines. Lamont was born on October 25, 1973, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and raised by a single mother after his father left early. Money was scarce, and Lamont often spoke about how tough those years were, moving around, watching his mother struggle to make ends meet, and feeling like the world was stacked against them. Those hardships left him fiercely determined to succeed, but also vulnerable to the pressure that came with chasing Hollywood dreams. Moving to Los Angeles as a teenager, he worked odd jobs while hustling for auditions. Slowly, small roles in commercials and TV spots started to stack up. His break finally came with Moesha, where he transitioned from background roles to a main cast member. Later, he reprised Hakeem in The Parkers, further cementing his place in 90s sitcom culture. Fans loved him, but behind the laughter, he often felt typecast, stuck in the funny best friend box. That frustration, mixed with the relentless grind of Hollywood, took its toll. Lamont slipped into depression, struggling to find serious roles outside of comedy. He developed habits of heavy partying and light alcohol abuse, which only deepened the struggles he tried so hard to hide. Friends said he was searching for a bigger purpose, something that could prove he was more than the role that made him famous. Tragedy struck on January 19, 2005, when Lamont died in a solo car accident in Ventura, California. He was only 31. Reports suggested he may have fallen asleep at the wheel after a late-night gathering. At the time of his death, his estate was estimated at just $500,000, modest compared to his impact. Fredro Starr as Quentin Q. Brooks. Q. Brooks was the kind of boyfriend who made Moesha's life way more complicated and way more interesting. Fredro Starr was just 25 when he joined the cast in 1996, and he brought an edge to the show that none of the other characters had. With his tough guy swagger and unpredictable moods, Q wasn't the safe choice, but that was exactly why he kept audiences hooked. Fredro was born April 18, 1971, in Queens, New York, and his childhood was shaped by survival more than comfort. Growing up in a rough neighborhood meant learning fast, fighting hard, and finding outlets before trouble found him. Music became that outlet, a way to channel the anger and loss he carried from a world that never gave anything for free. As part of the rap group Onyx, Fredro found success in the early 90s with their anthem Slam, but fame also magnified the chaos. Scandals over violence and public feuds followed him, cementing his reputation as hip-hop's hothead. Hollywood, though, saw potential. Roles in Strapped and Save the Last Dance proved he had more to offer than just aggressive rhymes. He could act, and he had presence. His personal life was turbulent. A short marriage collapsed in the 2000s, ending in painful custody battles. Then came tragedy in 2010, when his younger brother died in a car accident, plunging him into depression. Fredro turned back to music and writing as therapy, reshaping grief into something he could live with. Now 54, he continues to rap with Onyx, acts in shows like Power Book 2, and is raising 2 kids. His net worth is modest, around $500,000, but his legacy is bigger than numbers. Fredro Starr gave Moesha its drama, and hip-hop one of its rawest voices. Countess Vaughn as Kimberly Parker. Kim Parker could light up a room in 2 seconds flat. Loud, sassy, and full of energy, she was Moesha's best friend, the kind who'd embarrass you in public and make you laugh so hard you forgot why you were mad. Countess Vaughn was only 18 when she took on the role in 1996, and her comedic timing was so good she landed her own spin-off, The Parkers. Countess was born August 8, 1978, in Idabel, Oklahoma, a small town where opportunities were scarce. As a child, she faced constant teasing about her weight, and those early experiences planted deep insecurities. Performing became her escape, singing, acting, and eventually competing on Star Search, which she won as a young girl. That victory gave her the confidence to chase Hollywood. By the mid-1990s, Countess was on TV screens nationwide, but fame brought its own pressures. Moesha made her a household name, and the Parkers proved she could carry a show. Yet behind the scenes, tabloids mocked her body, fueling dangerous diets and a lifelong struggle with self-image. Her personal life was rocky. A relationship with rapper Kevin Federline ended in 2007 after years of turbulence and custody disputes over their children. An earlier marriage to Joseph Jones ended in divorce too, leaving her with emotional scars. To cope, she leaned on shopping sprees, another habit that drew unwanted attention. Now 47, Countess lives a quieter life with her 2 kids. She occasionally appears on reality shows, and her net worth is about $1 million. Fans still remember Kim Parker as the over-the-top best friend who made them laugh, but they also admire Countess Vaughn for being open about the struggles she carried long after the cameras stopped rolling. Merlin Santana as Ohagi. Ohagi showed up on Moesha with an easy smile and the kind of confidence that made him instantly popular. Merlin Santana was only 20 years old when he joined the show in 1996, and audiences quickly noticed his charm. For many fans, he wasn't just a guest character. He felt like someone who could have carried his own storyline. Merlin was born on March 14, 1976, in New York City to Dominican parents. Life in Harlem was tough, and losing his mother early left a hole that never truly healed. He grew up fast, using performance as a way to escape the pain of instability. By the age of 13, he was already acting, balancing childhood grief with the weight of helping his family survive. His rise seemed unstoppable. Small roles turned into bigger ones, first on The Cosby Show, then across teen sitcoms in the 90s. By the time he played Ohagi on Moesha and later Romeo on The Steve Harvey Show, he had become a familiar face in living rooms across America. His mix of charm and talent hinted at a future filled with promise. But that promise came with pressure. Fame from such a young age pulled him into fast circles, late nights, risky crowds, and habits like marijuana that dulled the weight of it all. He longed for stability, but often found himself in toxic relationships and social scenes that left him vulnerable. Friends later said he struggled to balance the boy who had grown up too quickly with the man the world expected him to be. On November 9, 2002, tragedy struck. At just 26 years old, Merlin was ambushed in Los Angeles, lured into a setup and shot 5 times. His killers were sentenced to life in prison, but that didn't soften the blow for fans who had watched him grow up on screen. At the time of his death, his estate was valued at about $1 million. Shar Jackson, as Niecy Jackson. Niecy Jackson had the kind of spark that made every scene brighter. Shar Jackson stepped into the role at age 20 in 1996, bringing sass, humor, and loyalty that balanced perfectly against Moesha's seriousness. She gave the show its rhythm of friendship, and that energy carried her far beyond the sitcom. Shar was born on August 31st, 1976, in Boston, Massachusetts. Her childhood was marked by frequent moves and the constant struggle of a family trying to stay afloat. Those years weren't easy. Shar learned resilience by watching her parents work hard with little reward. Humor became her defense, and performing gave her the attention and validation she couldn't always find at home. Moesha became her big break, but it wasn't her only spotlight. Audiences also saw her in Good Burger and later on reality TV, where her straightforward, candid personality kept people watching. She was talented, funny, and relatable, making her stand out in an era crowded with sitcom stars. Yet her personal life was full of turbulence. From 2002 to 2004, she was in a relationship with Kevin Federline, with whom she had 2 children. Their breakup turned into a media storm when Federline married Britney Spears, leaving Shar caught in tabloid headlines. The custody disputes and public scrutiny pushed her into depression, and unhealthy habits like smoking and binge-watching reality TV became her way to cope. Now 49, she balances raising 4 children with running a podcast and taking guest roles, including Good Burger 2 in 2023. Her net worth is around $500,000, but her true legacy lies in her honesty. Time has changed their faces and taken a few far too soon, but the legacy of Moesha remains. Who do you remember most from the cast? Let us know, and make sure to like and subscribe for more TV journeys.